Okay, before I start this video, I'm going to tell you something that sounds totally ridiculous, and then I'm going to give you a few seconds to decide whether or not it was real or was a joke. This thing that I'm about to say it sounds so ridiculous it will literally be hard to tell. Okay, so this guy worked for the Norfolk Southern, and he got fired because when you work for the railroad, you're supposed to be on call, which means they're going to call you when they have a job for you, and you're going to have to answer that phone and be ready for work within 90 minutes once you receive this call. This guy was not answering his phone. He missed enough calls to get you fired, and then he decided to sue the company for firing him. The reason he gave was they didn't provide any training on how to answer your phone. I kid you not, this is actually a thing that happened. In fact, at the hiring session, the guy was actually trying to explain to us how to answer our phones, and everyone, of course, was curious as to why we would need training on how to answer your phone. But apparently, the reason they actually ask you, do you know how to answer a phone nowadays, is because this one person was stupid enough that he apparently didn't know how to answer his phone. I honestly find it really hard to believe that there's someone so stupid that they can't answer their phone now. I feel like that was just an excuse. And really, you can't really blame the company in a situation like this, because it should be common knowledge how to answer a phone. Anyway, you're probably wondering how my trip to Harrisburg went when I was invited by the Norfolk Southern Railroad to a hiring session. Well, unfortunately, I did not get the job. They had a list posted on the wall, and they said everyone whose names were on that list will get a chance to interview, but sadly, my name was not on that list. However, they did say those whose names were not on the list, they're more than welcome to appear in future hiring events. And they plan on having more hiring events soon, so I still have a chance to be hired by them. Now, to be honest, now that I know that I qualify for a job as a conductor, I'm no longer interested in driving trucks, because truck driving was really supposed to just be my plan B job if I couldn't get a job as a conductor or a locomotive engineer. But to be honest, truck driving does not hold a candle to the railroad industry. In fact, the trucking industry fails in so many ways that the railroad industry wins. I mean, the railroad industry succeeds in so many ways the trucking industry fails. For example, in the railroad industry, and this makes perfect logical sense, and I don't understand why other companies don't do this, but in the railroad industry, you're on call, which means only when you have a job will you have to appear at work. They only call you to work when there's a job available. This is completely opposite to what they do in pretty much every other job that I've had. For example, in warehouses, they want you to be at work all day long, even when there's no one ordering anything and there's nothing for you to do, which I don't think makes any sense to me at all. In fact, yesterday I was talking to my coworkers about how much better the railroad industry is than this job we're having right now, because there was no one ordering anything and we were just standing around waiting for someone to order something. And I'm like, well, if this were the railroad industry, we'd only be called here when there was something for us to do. We'd only have to work until our job was done, and then we could go. Pretty much. And then the guy sitting next to me said, well, I'd rather get paid and do nothing than have to go home and not get paid for it. And then I said, well, the railroad industry figured that out too. As it turns out, they have something called a guaranteed minimum, which is the minimum amount of money you will get paid per week. Even if a whole week goes by and they can't find anything for you to do, you will still get paid a certain amount. And it's enough that you can pay your bills with. Like, it's not like a really tiny, minuscule amount. This makes a lot more sense than having people working 40-hour shifts when there's no work for you to do. And I don't understand why other companies don't do this. And it's really terrible in the trucking industry too, because in the trucking industry, sometimes they don't have a trailer for you to pull, and you're basically just stranded until the company can find you something to do. And I'm like, why don't they just only call you to work when there's a trailer for you to haul. Why make you be in the middle of nowhere for several days just waiting for a trailer? There were so many times when I was a truck driver that I was thinking to myself, why can't this be an on-call type of job? Why do we have to be sitting here waiting for a trailer to pull? And in the trucking industry, they do not have a guaranteed minimum. So if they can't find you any work, you don't get paid. So this is a future rail fanning video I'm working on. This is actually a railroad crossing that I saw in a YouTube video a few days ago. It has 4 tracks, and there are lights on the middle tracks as well to let you know which track the train is coming from. This track is actually owned by Conrail and Norfolk Southern. However, to fill out a request made by one of my fans, I'm actually going to have Ferromex and Kansas City Southern using this railroad crossing, and possibly a few Norfolk Southern trains as well.